Hey Sammy, sorry I don't have my camera hooked up, but it's being used for work right now, so you'll just have to follow what I do without seeing my face. So when you load Cura, you know you've got all these settings on the right. Well, there's a lot of settings that you can use that you don't see by default. So if you hover over any of these categories like infill or material, there's a little gear. If you click the gear, it brings up a window and you can see here's material that I clicked on, and what's checked like build plate temperature and printing temperature is what you see over here. But if for some reason you wanted printing temperature of initial layer, like maybe you wanted the first layer to be a different temperature than the rest, you can select that. And when you do that, now we've got this new setting, printing temperature of initial layer. If you don't want it, you can turn it back off. Well, there's a section at the very bottom over here on the right called experimental. It's at the very bottom. It's got a little like Erlenmeyer flask, like from chemistry. So if you click on the gear next to it, it brings up the same window that we were just in. It just scrolled it to the very bottom. So when you're looking under experimental, there's something called tree support. And you can see here the ones I have. I'm not an expert at it, but I've just checked a bunch that I thought were important, like the first 6 or 7 here. And auto temperature, it looks like spaghetti infill. I think this just like spits filament inside structures to give it some kind of support without making a really like supportive inside. It just wants to fill it with something so it's not empty, but it doesn't make a real thick structure, so it doesn't use a lot of filament. And then spaghetti infill extra volume, I guess. I don't know. I would look through all these and see if any of them sound interesting, because I really don't know what they do. There's probably some in here that are really important that I've never even tried. But what is important is the tree support. So do that, and I checked all of these too. And now for me, when I expand experimental, you can see I've got these settings. So the branch angle is 40%. So if a object is vertical, that's 90%. And as it starts leaning over to horizontal, I guess that would be 0. So at some point when it starts leaning over, you can tell it at this point I want you to start putting supports, and for me that's 40%. So if I go ahead and open this mask, the one we're printing, you see it's standing up, and what's red here is what's going to get supports. So my angle is 40%. If I decrease it to 30%, you'll see the red get smaller. Well, maybe I didn't do it in an area that will show it. 10%. Oh, I don't have generate support checked. So there we go. Let's do 40%. Well, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. I definitely know if you're not using tree supports and you're just using regular supports, this angle, 42%, is what's showing in red here. So if I change it to 50%, it gets less. And if I change it to 10%, 15, so you can see as the number goes up, the higher the percentage, 23. So basically what it's saying here is at 23% of an angle or less, or more, I forget, or less, yeah, it's going to use support. So I find that 60% is usually a pretty good good angle. Like it really needs support at this because it's basically flat. But as the support number goes up, 40, 30, basically this is saying anything that's not flat, I want you to put support on. Like that's crazy. You don't need that much at all. So 10% is way too low. 60%, 50, somewhere around there is pretty good. Mine was at 42, I think. I must have been testing something, but anyway, so go down to tree supports, select it. You can see my numbers. They seem to work pretty well for me. I would recommend leaving those checked. You can uncheck this generate support though, because you don't want the one that Cura puts by default. You want to use the tree support, so leave that checked. And then you hit slice, and when it finishes, you'll see there's this preview at the top middle. I don't know if you ever use that, but it shows you what it's going to look like when it's done. Now I've left it vertical just in this video, but I would actually not print like this. I should have laid it flat first. In fact, I'm going to cancel that. So the way I lay it flat, I don't know if you've discovered this, when you select your object, you can come here to the left to rotate. You've got lay flat, and then you have this one. It's called select face to align to the build plate. I like this one Because what this means is once you select it, anything you touch, it's going to lay it flat on the bed. So if I touch this surface right here, click, it lays it flat. It's so easy to get it exactly the way you want it using that lay flat feature. So I lay it flat and then maybe move it around a little bit to about here, and then I'll slice it. It should be a lot quicker because there's not as much support to generate. You can see it's already almost halfway done. So we'll see. So there, this is finished. It says 5 hours. Now if I click preview, you'll see it's going to show us where the supports are going to be. It's this blue stuff. So using the tree supports uses a little more material than the regular supports, but it is very easy to break off. Like you can see the blue support here around the outside. I can reach with my hand and almost pull every bit of this off while it's still in the print bed. And then I just use my little spatula to kind of scrape it off when it's done. So I like it a lot. Like I said, it uses a little bit more material, but it is so easy to clean up. You don't have to spend hours breaking supports off. So I would do that. And then that's done. With the other piece, I like to use pretty much the same method where I select the object, hit scale if I want to make it smaller. Lucy, her face fits a 75% mask pretty well. So for her, I changed this to 75 and hit tab, and it made it a little smaller, and I did the same for the mask. Heidi, my wife, said 90% fit her really well. I tried 85%, but she said it was a little bit too small. So you can adjust the size of whatever you want to print. So this is 85. Then I'll do the lay flat again. There it is. This one needs a very little support. I mean, you can see the bottom of the little nubs here have a little overhang. That might not even be needed, but it's so small that it doesn't even make any difference when I clean up. I just like scrape it with my thumbnail. So you can see the preview. I don't even think it is making supports. So anyway, that's it. I hope this helps. Shoot me a message if you need any more help. All right.